Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. Gumball Love is how to stop the cycle of sugar high romance, discover your worth, and find true love. All right, today's episode is a special episode because I've been giving you so much content about Gumball Love and all the different changes we've been making. But as you can hear, a common thread is finding your interests and finding your passion and knowing who you are and being able to feel confidence to explore that. And I've been watching my very own podcast editor, Dana Drahos, who is on our podcast today. She moved from New York City to Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And she made this huge leap of faith because she felt like, I want to live abroad. I just have this feeling like I want to go and I want to do something different. I don't want to be in corporate America. I'm just going to leave. Can you imagine you're going to leave, or if you're in a different country, when you leave your home country and you go to a different country, you don't really know anything. You're just brand new and you're going to experience something completely different. It's a huge leap of faith. And I know that everybody isn't ready to do something like that, but I wanted you to hear her story so that you could kind of, live vicariously, but also get into that vibe of what do I need to explore for myself? What does it sound like? What does it feel like to get that feeling and then act on it? And then what happens on the other side? So Dana came to me 2 years ago. She was already in Vietnam. She'd been teaching English, and she decided, I want to edit not only podcasts. She never edited a podcast before, but she also wanted to edit a relationship podcast. So Dana came to me, from all people, a person I went to high school with, who also took a very similar leap of faith and moved abroad and became an English teacher. So I don't want to ruin the podcast, but I just wanted to introduce her to you because she has been literally my right hand. I can send my podcast to her and she makes all the magic happen on all the platforms. So in the beginning, when people would say, hey, I listen on Spotify. Hey, I listen on YouTube. Hey, I listen on Apple. Hey, I listen on Google. Dana made all those things happen. So no matter where you listen to podcasts, you can tune in and hear Gumball Love. So I wanted to give her, she's done so many things. She's created a community of podcasters in Saigon. She has now discovered a passion around nutrition and women's health. And she's been posting all these incredible things about what we need to be doing to have better periods and all this juicy stuff. And I was like, you know what? I want my girls, you, to hear this amazing information. And Dina is only 28. So, it's amazing how much you can do in a period of 3 years. And I wanted you to just get a taste of this so that you can be inspired to do what it is that might be a little tiny spark of something, that thing you don't really know why you're thinking about, but it's in there. And I wanted you to listen to Dana's story and maybe grab a little bit of that inspiration. And if something happens from this episode where you are sparked in a way, I want to hear from you. Comment in the latest Instagram post, send me an email, melissa@gumballlove.com, or tell Dana, reach out to her as well and let her know how this podcast inspired you. So all the information is in the show notes. So without further ado, here is Dana Drahos. Okay, so you moved to Vietnam in what year?
2018, July 2018.
2018. Okay. So tell everybody where you're from though, like how you grew up, and then how did you end up moving to Saigon?
Yeah. So I'm from a small town in New Jersey. Long Valley, New Jersey, to be specific, and about 2.5 hours outside of New York City. So I went to university in Pennsylvania, and after that went to New York City to work and worked at an advertising agency, and very quickly found out that I hated the typical 9 to 5 hustle lifestyle. It was fun for like a year or two, advertising, like agency life, parties. It felt like college part two.
Mm.
And after a while, it was kind of like, I don't really see my future going anywhere here in this place. But at the same time, I had no idea what else I would do. I was kind of just going along with the motions of what I thought I should be doing. And
But how old were you when you already figured this out? Because I feel like it took me
yeah,
you're like, you show up and you're like, I'm out of here. But that's amazing. You were able to see
yeah.
this isn't going to take me anywhere. You already knew. How did you know? Was it just you didn't like corporate life? Because you're in New York City, you're at an ad agency.
Which should be the dream,
yeah,
right?
get caught up in it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like I didn't fit in or didn't want the same things that other people wanted. And we'll get into it later, but I was like dating a guy at the time, and he was super like, seemed like he wanted to marry me and stuff. And he was someone who was very much a stay-at-home type of person, like didn't want to go too far from home, liked staying at home with his family. And I was always like, I need to get out of here. Like I need to go somewhere far, far away.
Had you traveled much when you were a kid? Like, did you guys go on trips, or was traveling something you really hadn't had a chance to do?
We didn't do much traveling when I was younger, really not at all. In high school, I did one trip to Greece with my like, I don't know, Greek mythology class. And so that was my first eye-opening. I think I was 15 at the time, and I was just like, oh my God, I was just addicted. And then and during university, I studied abroad in Australia for 5 or 6 months. And then in between, working at my advertising agency job, anytime I got holiday off, it was always like, go somewhere, like go outside of the country. So I was lucky enough to have many friends who were living abroad. So I visited people in South Africa or Scotland, and I did the birthright trip to Israel. So I got to go on a free trip to Israel. So that was really lucky. And
these places before what age?
So I was like 19, I guess, when I went to Australia. And then I guess in my early 20s, like before 25, I had traveled to these like short trip kind of places, but it was never enough. Like whenever I left, I always felt like I need more. Like that wasn't enough. I need to be immersed in a new culture for just a long period of time. I just wanted to fully live it and understand other people's perspectives. And it wasn't until I visited my friend in South Africa, and she just said, if I can do it, you can do it. Like there's literally nothing stopping you. And at that point, the only thing stopping me was people at work saying things like, oh, but if you just stay a few more years, you can make so much money. And oh, if you leave this career now, like no one's going to hire you back, or you're going to just have this big gap on your resume. And how are you going to explain that? And just all those kind of fears. Eventually I was just like, I don't care. Like I want to live abroad, and I don't like, money doesn't motivate me. So what motivates me is that freedom and chance to see a new side of things.
Yeah. And this is, because obviously you edit every podcast for Love, and that I'm always trying to help girls to figure out what is it that you love? What is it that you are passionate about? And when I sit down with so many clients, they're sitting there like, I don't know what it is that I love to do. And so sometimes I wanted to ask you next, I will ask you, is like, what was it when you were traveling that you were like, I have to have this? And you said a little bit of it, like freedom, but how did you know, like, this is something I need to do? Because, and you wouldn't have figured it out had you not gone on that one trip, right? So you may have never really, maybe that first, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what were those first buds of inspiration, or those first signs that I'm not meant for corporate America, I'm meant for something else? And what does that look like? Because as you were talking, I was thinking, wow, I used to be so obsessed with France when I was young. I wanted to go
Mm.
there. I wanted to live in France. I wanted to speak French. And then I got caught up in the corporate life and thought, oh, I'll go. And I still have
Mhm.
never gone, which is tragedy. And then, when 2020 happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have gone to Europe this whole time. So, so yeah. So tell me what that feels like. Cause I think a lot of people think that these interests are going to just hit them and it's going to seem like, oh yes, this is the next logical step, but it comes in that whispered form where it's like, maybe I should do this. So what was it, the first trip to Greece, or how did you know I need to follow this call? Like, what was it that like triggered that in you?
It's such a good question and it's so hard to answer. I feel like when I think back to that relationship from high school and college, I had no idea who I was in that relationship. I just, whatever he liked or whatever he wanted to do, I would like or want to do. I just like completely lost myself in it and I was not my own person at all. And but even in that context, I still knew that there was this little like itch inside me to travel and just run away. But I think after we broke up, it was this moment of like, oh my God, I don't know who I am or what I like or what I want to do. I was just like relying on him to, direct my life for me.
Mhm.
And just, we went to the same high school and the same university. And we also both lived in New York City. So I would run into him. We had the same circle of friends. It was just like impossible to escape him. And I could have gone to a different, state, but instead I was
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm leaving the country. Like
I'm going to go on the other side of the globe to get it.
you can't find me there.
So go from advertising to Saigon. I mean, that's a huge, I know everyone probably says this to you because I moved to Japan when I was a sophomore in high school. So I know the
Yeah.
backlash that you can get from people are like, what are you doing with yourself? This is crazy. What are you even thinking? Because they can't picture what it's like there. And so
Yeah.
whatever they imagine, it's scary and you shouldn't go and you need to stay here where you're safe. So at what point
Yeah.
did you leave the advertising agency and go straight to
Yeah.
how did you like, how does someone just hear about a
Vietnam.
job? Yeah. What are we,
Yeah.
what are we doing in
Yeah.
Vietnam when we're in ad
So,
agencies?
yeah. So like even when I was working at the ad agency, I was on my computer like looking for other ways to live abroad and make money. I was definitely like not doing the work that I was supposed to be doing. Um, so that to answer your other question, I think that was also a hint of like, okay, I definitely don't want to be here because I'm actively looking for ways to escape.
Yeah.
And I also was looking at, my boss and my boss's boss and seeing how miserable they were in their lives. And I was like, well, if that's what my future looks like, I definitely don't want to stick around for that.
Yeah.
So, but I was seeing my friend living her best life in South Africa. And I was just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to take that option.
Mhm.
And we are so blessed to just be from America, from an English speaking country. And people, like jobs pay a lot of money in Asia to hire especially like white English speaking people from America.
Mhm.
So I just started Googling like best places to teach English abroad. And there were all those listicle articles, and Vietnam kept coming to the top of the list because of low cost of living, great culture, a lot of different kinds of atmosphere like city, beach, mountains,
Mhm.
food, and the pay for teachers is really good. So all of those things. And then I started watching videos on YouTube of people who were living here and just they were showing the behind the scenes of this is what a day in the life looks like of my life being a teacher in Saigon, or these are my travels in Asia and stuff. And I was just obsessed, like binging all of the
Mhm.
content. And even on Netflix, I was watching Anthony Bourdain do like street food tours in Asia and specifically Vietnam, and he loved Vietnam. And I just became obsessed with like the idea of it, and I was visualizing it every day. And that's kind of, yeah. So I guess I found a company called Ninja Teacher through YouTube because he was making a lot of videos of day in the life. And he offered a program where you can get certified because you have to get certified to teach English. So you fly to Vietnam, you do a month of this certification, and the cost that you pay for that program includes the living expense, like the housing, and they kind of help you. They like ease you into it. They take you for a tour around the city, and you're with a group of people who are also all new to Vietnam and new to teaching. So you're all kind of in it together.
And you're teaching English, right? So you were looking at
Yeah.
this job saying, okay, I'm sitting in Manhattan and I'm looking online at this job. And now I'm going to quit this job and I'm going to go to Vietnam for a month and learn how to be a teacher that teaches English.
Yeah. And
where were you going?
there was no job. Yeah. Ho Chi Minh City. There was no job lined up for me necessarily. All I knew was I'm going to go to Vietnam and get certified, and then we'll see what happens. But the company helps you because they are connected to centers and stuff. So they help you afterwards to get a job.
Okay. So how did you decide? I'm kind of like trying to picture this moment. Did you just like say, okay, this is it? Or how did you tell your parents? Or like at what point did you make that decision?
Yeah. I told my boss maybe a month in advance of when I was leaving, or maybe 2 months in advance of when I was leaving. And then my parents, I feel like they knew it was coming because since high school, was nonstop talking about I want to live abroad someday. But they wanted me to, and I wanted to pay off my student loans first because I didn't want to have that burden hanging over me. So that's kind of why I was doing the advertising job, just to like pay down the student loans. And once that was done, because I would still bring up I want to live abroad, and they would kind of be like, really? Like, I don't think so. That's dangerous. But once I was no longer like financially dependent on them, then they had nothing to say to me. Like they couldn't say no. I kind of was like, I'm just letting you know that I'm going and you can be mad if you want, but you can't really do anything about it. And they weren't mad. Like my mom, I think because she saw me make it in New York and like handle New York City, she was like, okay, I feel like you can handle it.
Yeah.
My dad, I think he'll always see me as this little girl. And he's like, oh, it's going to be so dangerous and I'm not going to be able to help you and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, it'll be fine.
Yes. Okay. So you got there and like, where do you live right off the bat? Because I know it's relatively different than here. So, or in the US, but what were did you have any regrets when you first got there? Like, oh God, is this where I'm living? Like what's happening? What does it do with myself?
Yeah. The first day, well, I arrived at 1 a.m. So I was pretty much picked up. The program that I did, they arranged airport pickup service. So I was picked up and took straight to the place that I would be staying for a month. And it was in Ho Chi Minh City, but like not in like a nice part of Ho Chi Minh City. It was pretty kind of far out there. So that was my first impression. And I was like, oh shit, like what did I just do? And it was, yeah, there were like cockroaches all in my room and the air conditioner was leaking. There was just like a flood of water on the floor and the bed was not even a bed. It was just like rock hard, like a piece of wood.
Oh my God.
But I was just like, I was still into it though. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm, slumming it in Vietnam and like I felt cool.
Yeah.
And the next day, I don't think I barely left the room. I just like cried all day because I didn't understand how to get food. Like when you walk outside in Vietnam, the restaurants, they don't really look like restaurants. It just looks like, and sometimes it is just someone's living room that they like literally just open their front door and they've converted their living room to have like some plastic table and chairs. And then they have like they make like soup And so I was very confused. I'm like, is this someone's house, or like, can I eat here? Like, is this a restaurant, or are they just cooking outside? Like,
At
not.
someone's picnic right now? Is there someone's
Yeah.
birthdays or like a cake that's going to come out and I'm going to be in the party? Like what's happening?
Yeah, yeah. And like the area again that we were in was kind of far from the main center. Knowing what I know now, I mean, there's the main center is very like developed and built up, and people speak English all over, and I never have a problem. But there, I couldn't speak any Vietnamese, and I just sort of eventually I was so hungry that I just walked up to this lady who looked like she was making food, and I was just like, pho? Yeah, okay. And just, put down a bowl, and yeah. And yeah, and then the program eventually started, and I finally got to meet other people sort of going through this same experience, and it was a lot more comfortable after that.
Okay. So when you got there, how long till you went back to the US the next time?
I think a year and a half.
Okay, that's a long time. So you did all for me I know when I went to Okinawa, Japan, it was missing the holidays, missing all the US customs. It was weird to just be in a country where
Yeah.
those things, some of them weren't even observed. So you're like, oh wow, all these things are going on in the US and it's like a normal day here. And then the cold and
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
so you became a teacher. So you're teaching English. I know we're just short on time. I just want to I wanted people to have that little bit of an insight into a new experience, something that you want to do, but you don't really know why. You just have that draw, that pull. I saw a quote, and I think I said it in my last podcast, but it's like, why does this inspire me? What's drawing me to this? And it's just sometimes it's the little things like, I just like this kind of flower and I don't know why, but just have it, just go get it. If you're thinking about it, you put that on your desk, even if it's a fake version or whatever, just having the things around you are that are some way connected to you and
Mhm.
you may not be able to explain it. But what would you say, as now you've been there 3 years, if you could look back to Dana from 3 years ago, and now you can see the experience that you were weirdly drawn to and you didn't know why. What have you experienced now where that makes sense?
Mm, yeah, it makes so much sense because, like you said, there was no real rational explanation. It was just literally a feeling in my heart that was
Mhm.
pulling me to Vietnam specifically. And I did not understand why, because I had zero interest in anything Asia before. I'd never even really eaten Asian food before or anything like that.
And now
And
you're in someone's living room having soup.
like,
I've never
what?
eaten Asian food, but can I come to your house, Adri,
Like,
and
how did I
make
get here?
pho?
I think I just wanted something so radically different that I was like, I'm just gonna do like the craziest thing ever. Uh, so yeah, it was just a feeling. And now looking back, I'm wow, thank God I came here, because I don't know where my life would be if I hadn't gone, but I definitely would not have grown as much as I have, I think. Um, it allowed me to step back and have the time. And so for me, like at the beginning, I pretty much went straight into another kind of toxic, icky relationship situation.
So you found a Gumball
And
Guy in Vietnam?
oh yeah, right away, right away.
Oh
He was
no, I didn't know this story.
oh yeah, he was in my my course, like the certification. Um and I I mean, in New York City too, I was like dating a bunch of them. And finally, after that last experience though, I was like, okay, wait. Because at first I'd be like, oh, why me? Like, why do I always end up with these terrible guys who are disrespectful and, don't care about me and all that stuff? And then finally I was like, wait, I'm the common denominator here. Like,
Hmm.
what is my problem? Like, why do I attract these people? And that was really like the tipping point into this whole self-discovery journey and digging into childhood trauma and being like, oh wow, my dad was really emotionally distant, and now I'm attracted to these emotionally distant guys, and just starting to read books on the topic and eventually going to therapy as well. um, And I think if I was at home, I wouldn't have felt as free or comfortable to explore those things because I would have been so close to the pain and like the trauma, physically close to it. So I feel like I guess I needed a whole ocean of distance to be able to step back and observe those things. And I think also just being in a different country, it automatically turns something on in your brain, I think, to just look at things differently because you have to. Like all of a sudden, everything that you once knew is just turned upside down. And it's like, no, actually, some people do things this way, and some people think this way about things. And so I think it just flipped everything upside down for me. And finally feeling like I fit in, because strangely enough, like finally feeling like I fit in Asia, where I have zero like cultural background. But it was more the fact that I'm around people who had that same feeling of actually not feeling like they belonged in their home country and finding a home in this new country. And I think that provided me kind of a safety net of, I have this supportive network of people having gone through similar experiences as me. And we can open up and talk about those things. Whereas at home, like, it didn't seem like people were interested in talking about those things. It was just like, let's go to happy hour, get drunk and hook up. And no growth is happening at happy hour. Like,
no growth, no self-help books there's no book. Yeah. So you were teaching English, and I met you through, of all people, a high school friend from my hometown, which was so weird because she was in a class ahead of me. And I think she had a Instagram, something like the Gypsy. She called herself the Gypsy something. And it kind of made sense because she was also, I remember we sat next to each other in French class. And I just remember I could tell she felt a disconnect in some way. Like she just didn't seem like she was synced up to everything at school. And I could sense that from her. I also wasn't. I was always like, I'm in school, but I never really felt like I fit. I never felt connected. I'm actually writing that piece in my book right now of just, I was writing how, even though I was a cheerleader and I looked like a popular girl, it was just I was able to wear the uniform 2 to 3 days a week. So I got out of the pressure of figuring out some outfit to wear. Cause I I still have no fashion sense. Like I know enough to like put it together, but it was like, my friends would be like, oh, look at this in 17 or Vogue. Yes. That's cute. And I would look at it and be like, I don't know that that's cute. I have no idea what you're saying. Like, I can't see what you're seeing. And so I would stare at it and be like, I think that looks I would never wear that. I think that's ugly. Is that ugly? I just had no idea what I was doing. So it was like, I get to a Australian uniform where I'm told you wear these socks with these shoes with this skirt. And I was like off the hook. So yeah. So she reached out to me because she said, there's a friend of mine in Vietnam. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're in Vietnam. So she was in Vietnam with you. And I was like, it kind of makes sense that Angie would be in Vietnam traveling the world. So I was like, oh my gosh, she's teaching English in Vietnam. She's like, I have this girl that's interested in editing a podcast. So here, I think I met you on Instagram. I think it was Instagram Live, or no, Instagram video, when Instagram video was like new. And it just felt like I was talking to you on the moon or something. It was like the worst connection ever. And you're like, I've never edited a podcast, but I want to edit podcasts. And I'm like, who is this girl? And so there was something about, I was almost like, yeah, I don't know. This girl's never done this before, but there was something about you. It was like, I feel like I need to give this girl a chance. So you're teaching English and you're like, I've never edited podcasts before, but now I want to do that. And specifically relationship podcasts. It's like
weird.
So weird. Isn't it great to be a weirdo and just, I am a weirdo.
This is exactly what I want. It makes no sense, but
it makes no sense, but it did make sense to you. So why that then? Because this was 2 years ago, I think, right? So you've been in Vietnam for a year and you were like, okay, I don't want to teach as many hours. You were looking for something to supplement your income. So what was the disconnect? Why relationship podcast? Because now you've created this whole network of podcasters in Saigon, which is unbelievable. So give us like the Reader's Digest version of relationship podcasts to creators in Saigon and and today, because now you're doing your health certification. So just to kind of give everybody an idea of how that progressed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I very quickly found out that English teaching was also not my passion. And I still wanted a way to be able to live abroad and have that freedom of location independence and make my own money and things like that. I just hate having like a boss telling me like exactly, do this, do that, or don't do this, do that. And so yeah, Angie was part of some digital nomad, like Kickstarter
Nomad, that's what it
thing.
was. Yes.
Yeah. And it was just like, here's how to start a business online. You can be a virtual assistant, meaning just doing, virtual tasks for online business owners. And at that point, I really had like, I didn't know what skills to offer because I didn't want to do like advertising type stuff, but that was all I had done before. But I think at the same time, I was also getting into, starting my own podcast in Saigon. And so I at least had started learning those skills, editing for myself and doing all of that. So I think relationships, I mean, I was so obsessed for a long time since like my college breakup with like relationships and dating and like all the psychology behind it because I so badly wanted to understand what went wrong with us. I just wanted to know like what did I do wrong? What did he do wrong? Like why did this happen? Why was it so good sometimes and then so bad other times? So I was just obsessed with like figuring that out. And then also with like parent relationships, my relationship with my parents. And so I guess I just very specifically wanted to help people in that space because for me, like I wanted to learn more too. And I also wanted to support someone in that space to help a larger amount of people. So there was that. And yeah, eventually once I had more experience through doing yours, then I started getting more clients. And that was my full-time thing in pretty much all of 2020. So I was able to quit English teaching and just do podcast management work full-time. But eventually it became clear that that was not really my passion either. Well, mostly because I mean, I was doing my own podcast or trying to do my own podcast, but it was so exhausting to like do everyone else's podcast and then be like, oh, now I have to do mine, And I didn't like that. And I didn't really feel like, I think I had gained the confidence now that it was like, okay, I actually want to be the one like talking and putting myself out there.
I know just from the time I've met you till now, it's like your confidence and you're such a good speaker and like it's just so fun to watch this whole process bloom. I feel like, I mean, from 3 years ago to today, I mean, it really shows when you put yourself out there and you take those risks. I mean, that's what you've done. You've taken the risks and you've put yourself out there. You were willing to sleep on the hard bed with the cockroaches. And, sometimes like it's starting there and being like, okay, I'm going to keep going. And you're like the picture perfect of this isn't honoring who I am. I'm moving on, even though it could be a fight. I'm not going to let money be my motivator. I'm going to do what my heart wants to do. I'm going to do and follow my passion. And that is so admirable. And I hope that people listening can even get a piece of that because I think so many people feel like they're in this, I'm going to work, I'm going to the gym, and maybe like, what are your hobbies? And they're like, maybe I go hiking or I tell people, okay, working out in any form is not a hobby. Like, I want them to do something else that feeds their soul because then I just feel like you come alive and that's when you really are, you're able to flourish in all aspects of your life, not just in a romantic relationship. That's going to feed into your romantic relationship. So you started this podcast where you were connecting other creators in Saigon, right? So that's still going today, right?
Yeah. So it actually started because students would say, oh, I wish I was as confident as you to go abroad and like do all this, or I wish I had your courage. And it always rubbed me the wrong way because, first of all, I did not feel brave to leave home. I felt like I was running away from all my problems, which I was. And I thought that like just going to another place would solve everything and I would just show up and everything would be fine and I'd be happy all of a sudden. And I very quickly found out that that's not the case. Like you can go as far as you want, but your thoughts are still in your head. So you have to deal with those thoughts. But anyway, like, so I would say to them, well, I wasn't just born, no one's just born with confidence or courage. It's like a muscle that you have to work out. Like you work out at the gym, and the more you do it, the stronger you get. And I think it's the same with confidence. The more you put yourself out there, take risks, go outside your comfort zone, that muscle just gets stronger. So I wanted a podcast to show examples of people who had gone outside their comfort zone, taken that risk, to show other people that that's what's possible and hopefully inspire them to do something that scares them as well. And also showing people that, again, you don't need a lot of money to do something. Like I had people on my show who made a whole movie just on their phone, or I started out my podcast just recording on my phone. I didn't have any fancy equipment. So the whole ethos was like, just do it. Like whatever your idea is, if there's something on your heart, just do it. And maybe it's not going to be good, at the beginning, but that confidence muscle will grow. So yeah, now I've been doing it for about a year and a half. And I think that's totally been part of gaining confidence too, because I kind of used it as my therapy, where I would just be like so vulnerable and open about all the things that I was struggling with personally in terms of, like what I was learning as I was going to therapy, and asking guests on the show, how have you handled this experience? What were your past relationships like? And I would have people messaging me of like, wow, thank you for saying that, because I've been experiencing the same thing and I don't have anyone to talk to, because in Vietnam, mental health still is not really a topic to be discussed. It's kind of looked at as like, just suck it up, toughen up kind of thing. So a lot of young Vietnamese are deeply struggling with these things. And I think a lot of them don't even realize that they're struggling. I think they just think this is just the way it is. And so to hear someone like openly talking about these things, it suddenly gives them the permission to speak about it themselves. So,
yeah, I worked, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I worked for a Vietnamese animation. He was an animator. He went to Cal Arts and he was developing a feature film and a video game. And this was like in 2010. And the iPhone was new. It was like, I think it was maybe in its second edition. And he was a Vietnamese American, so he felt like he didn't belong in either place. He was like, he grew up in the US, but he literally came over. He was a boat person. He came over and his mother was pregnant with him, and his brother was in a fishing net around his mother's neck. And that's how they came to the United States. And so we had an animation studio in Vietnam. We had an animation studio in the US. And so we would look at what the Vietnamese animators would create when we'd have the same information, and it would come across as like, where is the message? Where are we losing in this in translation? And he would say that we don't realize that in America, we've had freedom to think whatever we want, like whatever thought comes in our head, we can just think it, we can do it, we can express it. We're not afraid to do that. He's like, but in Vietnam, they're not, they've been oppressed and in their thinking. And so to get them to be creative, he was like, that's why it's like, you can't really send this work over to some of these countries because their mindset is, it's not fast enough for the American audience, because he's like, once we've created a joke, once we've laughed about that, it's like, yeah, we've already laughed about that. We need something to laugh about. That's the way he explained it. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And so, but he wanted to give his, wanted to give people in Vietnam a chance to have that expression. But so when you were saying that about mental health, I was thinking, yeah, that's something that they aren't hearing, but that we can bring that there and give them that freedom, just the ability to be free, to think freely, and
Mhm.
to implement self-care and therapy is huge. So
Yeah.
that's an amazing gift that you're giving. I mean, that's life-changing for who knows how many people. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, I felt like I had to give back to them. Like it was like like a gift that I received because just being here,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they're so welcoming and everyone's nice and friendly, because I saw so many other expats and foreigners just taking advantage and just coming to this country just to exploit and, make a lot of money and spend a lot of money and not really offer anything of value. And I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't really like that. And so I wanted to offer something more.
Yeah. Okay, so I have been watching your Instagram, and so I know like I have this limited amount of time with Dana being my podcast editor because I know you're just going to grow and explode. And all of a sudden I start seeing all these posts about health and women's health and birth control and all these aha moments you've been having. And I know we talked a little bit offline because birth control is a controversial subject. So
Mhm.
just from your perspective, like I know how did you get into deciding, okay, I'm editing podcasts, I've created creators in Saigon, and then somehow this nutrition and health coaching became an interest of yours. So how did
Mhm.
that happen out of what you were doing?
Yeah. So I've been off and on all the kinds of birth controls since I was like 17. And before 17, I had awful periods, like so heavy, so painful, crazy mood swings. And we're just sort of brought up to think that that's normal. That's just the norm of like, yep, that's just being a woman. We have periods and they suck and you're going to suffer. Or you can go on birth control and you're going to have side effects and that's going to suck too. So those are
So
like the,
yeah, so let me just
yeah,
stop you there. So PMS, you're saying is not normal. We should not be going through mood swings and feeling like all of those irregular emotions. Because I mean, I've had that my whole life where I know, okay, it's the week before the period and I get irritable and so that's not normal, is what you're saying.
right. I would say it's common because so many people experience it. Technically, the reason that so many of us experience that is roots back to our diets and lifestyle and like the chemicals we're exposed to from the soil and the water and from our cosmetics, makeup cosmetics and household cleaning products have a lot of chemicals that disrupt our hormones, cause that hormonal imbalance. The food that we eat has a huge impact on our hormones. Stress as well. A lot of us are hyped up on caffeine all day long. And then, not to mention, a lot of us go through college not having the best diet. We're drinking alcohol. That's like a replacement for food when you're a college student,
Mhm.
and like drugs and coffee and all the things. So it's like, yeah, no wonder your body is all out of whack. And then instead of addressing those like root causes, the answer is just here's a pill. And then the pill has all these also negative effects on your body. And some people even have underlying medical conditions like PCOS or endometriosis. And these things go completely undetected because, again, like these types of pain and all the symptoms are just so normalized because so many people experience it. So then it's not really investigated enough. It's just like, okay, here's a pill, like that'll take care of that. And then years later, when the woman decides, okay, I'm ready to have kids, she comes off the pill and realizes that she's infertile now because she's been just covering up the symptoms of a much deeper problem that was not originally addressed. So that's kind of my gripe with, I think that I just wish more women were more educated when they are, given this option of here's birth control. I wish it was more of a conversation of like, there's birth control, but there's also like these nutritional adjustments we could make, or these, adjustments to your lifestyle.
Mhm.
And some people may still opt for the birth control. Sometimes that's just like the most convenient option, but at least for them to be fully educated on all the options would be.
So what did you when you started studying this, what did you change? What was the first thing like, okay, if I feel like, all right, maybe I'm just in the normal PMS or maybe I'm having worse symptoms, like what would you suggest for women to do right now? What are the quickest ways to clean up your diet? The first go-tos if you had to give like top 3 or 5.
Yeah. So actually, the first steps I would suggest is just start tracking what you're eating and your symptoms. So if I use Notion, I think you're starting to use Notion now in your
Mm-hmm.
business,
Yes.
but there's also plenty of apps out there like MyFlow, and I'm forgetting the other ones, but I can link some in the show notes. I'm sure people know about them anyway.
Yeah, one called Maya, which I've used
Yeah.
forever. So I can go to the doctor
Mhm.
and they're like, "When did you start your period?" And like 3 years ago, I can tell you. But it's
Yeah.
been it's been really and it is kind of the same. If you have any other great apps to recommend, so it does get to where it's really nice to know. Okay, yep. Why am I feeling irritable? Or one night
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep and I thought, oh, we were traveling, we we're on the road, and then I opened up my app and it was like having trouble sleeping. I was like, oh my God, it was like right on. So it does really help. So are there any other apps that you think are especially good for it?
Yeah, I would suggest My Flow. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Okay.
But yeah, like, and most of the apps, it's not even that helpful because yeah, like you can track your period symptoms, but that's only half of the story because even if you know like oh I was kind of late, it's like okay, well why? They don't really get into that. So that's why I suggest, even if it's just your own journal, like paper and pen, just tracking today I ate this for breakfast, this for lunch, this for dinner, and I had these kind of symptoms, sore boobs or heavy bleeding or headache, whatever it is, and do that for several months. Do that for like 3 months and just see what patterns you start to pick up on. Because a lot of times it feels like these symptoms are so random, but it's actually not random at all because it's all relating to the different phases of our hormonal cycle, what our hormones are doing at different times of the month, and relating to what we are eating. So for me, I started tracking, and something I found immediately, well, not immediately, it was over a few months. But the first one I noticed was that when I eat cheese or other dairy products, my boobs are sore the next day without fail. And then I research more into that and I see that that's very common. And the books that I'm reading about hormonal health and balance and everything, the authors say, I suggest to my clients remove dairy from your diet, and 9 times out of 10, that solves a lot of problems for a lot of people.
Mhm.
So it's just like really fascinating when you have that confirmation and that validation of, oh, I'm not just randomly getting sore boobs. It's because I ate cheese last night. And then
That is crazy.
yeah, and then you feel so empowered because then it's like you can make informed decisions. Like sometimes, well, now not anymore because I'm vegan, but like back in the days, I used to know that I'm going to eat this cheese and it's going to cause problems later on, but at least I'm informed about it this time
Sometimes
instead of
cheese is so worth it. Yes, I know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just little, or I started finding even certain things that I would eat in the morning, like, oh, if I eat an avocado in the morning, then I'm way more tired and like sluggish as I'm trying to get my work done in the morning. But if I eat a lighter breakfast with like lighter fruits, not so fat heavy, um, then I feel better. Like there's no brain fog. I'm like very clear headed. So even just getting down to these little details and tracking everything and just experimenting, like, oh, if I take out gluten from my diet, do I feel better? I found that for me personally. Or if I take out dairy or if I take out meat, what happens? Just, you can
Mhm.
start experimenting and seeing how you feel. What really like gets me, like when I see women having PMS symptoms and they're like, yeah, I just ate a whole pint of ice cream or just like shove my face with chocolate, and I used to do that too because again that's so normalized.
Mhm.
But what people don't realize is that's making it so much worse. Like that's
Oh.
just throwing, fuel to the fire. And so if we just are more aware of these things and we start tracking, did that pint of ice cream actually make me feel better? No, probably not.
Mhm.
Maybe for a second, like emotionally, but ultimately, no. So
You decided to jump into, I mean, it's one thing to research it, but it's another thing to decide to become a certified nutritionist and a health coach. So
yeah.
what made you want to do it actually for a living to help other people and to dive into it? Because I can tell just from your Instagram, you're in deep. You're all the way in the
I'm
woods.
obsessed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't see you anymore. You're so far in there. It's like Dana's gone into the nutrition and health woods. And like I have to have glasses now. I feel so old, but I'm like, crap, I can't read the small text and I need to come back to this
I
IG.
know.
So yeah, because it would be like screenshot this page. I'm like, I can't see it even if I zoom in. So
Yeah,
you're
I know. I need to start making real posts instead of just doing that. But
but
yeah,
you're in that mode, right? You're in that, oh my gosh,
yeah,
I'm absorbing all this information. But just as an outside observer, it's like, wow, this has become a passion. And again, you're following, I think it's like you're so young and all of these there was that the speech from Steve Jobs about connecting the dots. Do you know that speech? Where
yeah,
he
I'm
talks
familiar.
about how you make all these decisions through your life, and then as you look back, you can see how the dots connect. Like, yeah, it
Mhm.
was in advertising, but then I decided to, I got this feeling that I needed to go abroad. By the time the whole picture is there, you see how all the dots connect. And so
Yeah,
following your passions can seem disorganized. It can seem like it doesn't make sense, but then all of a sudden it becomes clear. So why nutrition health after podcast editing? Like what is that? And are you going to keep doing creators in Saigon or are you going to move exclusively to health coaching?
yes, all great questions. So health has always been a passion of mine. So when I was younger and I would watch, MTV and they would have these advertisements about like stopping smoking, like I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's why I majored in communications and like went into advertising. I worked at a pharmaceutical advertising agency, which at the time I thought I was doing a good thing. I'm like, yeah, pharma, health, and they sell the whole idea to you of like, yeah, we care about health. And then I realized later on, like, oh my God, pharma does not care about health at all.
They are
So
the
yeah. So it was always like a common thread. I guess after learning all of this stuff, reading all these books, and actually applying it for myself and seeing it work to like literally be like, okay, I'm going plant-based and I'm cutting out dairy and I'm cutting out coffee and alcohol and doing all these things. And then it literally worked. Like I had I removed my hormonal IUD that I was having for 3 years. And I had my first symptom-free period. Like it was so magical. There were no PMS,
wow.
no mood swings, no cramps. I didn't believe it could be true until I experienced it myself. And now I'm just like I'm like, everyone needs to know this. Like, I cannot rest until every last person knows this stuff because it just makes me so angry when I see people suffering and saying,
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I'm just having the worst migraines and I don't know why. Like, it's so random. And I'm like, it's not random.
Are
Yeah.
you going to teach this on another podcast or how do you see yourself from a coaching perspective? Like, how do you want people to know about you? Like, do you have anything available right now or is it still in the pro- production stage?
Yeah, it's still in the works, I would say. I have done a group program with some
Mhm.
girls here in Saigon because I had been doing free workshops. Like that's how badly I want everyone to know. I'm like, y'all, this workshop is free. Let me tell you some things and like please just take it to heart. And so I was doing some free workshops and then finally did like a small paid group program and it went really well. Like people had immediate benefits and everything. And now things are a little unclear because the situation is changing in Vietnam and the regulations are getting tougher for foreigners. And so it's a possibility that I might have to leave. in October when my part-time teaching contract ends. And so that's really sad, but I'm trying to figure out what would be my next move, or can I stay here? Can't I stay here? It's all very up in the air. But I mean, future, like no matter what, I definitely would want to have some kind of definitely like group program to take people through this type of education, and maybe some kind of digital course. And I really want to make a resource for men actually to be better supporters of their female partners, because men have no freaking, if women don't know this stuff, men definitely don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
They're just like clueless on, what's going on. And they say like dumb stuff like, oh, why are you so grumpy? And that all that is so normalized too. Like when I watch TV shows now, like How I Met Your Mother or something, and they're making jokes about the girls on their periods and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, it's everywhere. So I want to make,
and we're perpetuating it sometimes because we'll be like, I'm PMSy and I'm guilty of it. Like that's just what we know. And when it happens every month, and like we've bonded over it as girlfriends too. Like, like even in sports or in cheerleading, we would sync up. We'd all be on the same cycle together, and we'd all be bitches at the same time. Yep. There's bonding among the bitches. Yeah. Yes. So that is fascinating. Well, I guess as far as Vietnam goes, I'm sort of like sad for you. Yet then I was thinking, I wonder if this is a new adventure for you and it will take you to a different place.
Plan B is Mexico. Similar cost of living and similar lifestyle. And part of me is like, yeah, maybe I feel like I'm ready for a change. But part of me was also bummed out that I put in such effort to build a community here, and that there are people that I know could use this kind of service here. And now it's like, oh, now I have to go start all over again, build it all up again, which I know I'm capable of doing, but it's just like, and yeah, my podcast, we're still doing it. It just brings me joy. Like we don't make any money from it at all. It's just purely a passion project. And I'm going to continue doing that as long as I can.
Yeah. Absolutely. So lastly, I know most people didn't know you were the one behind the scenes for Gumball Love and this podcast for so long now. So what was your perception, I guess, maybe not of Gumball Love, maybe you learned it as you went, but how has it changed your frame of reference, or as you look at things? Because you probably know this content better than anybody, including my family. You know it inside and out. You can speak in my voice. You've made so many posts. And so just for everyone listening, Dana has been like, I can literally send the audio of the podcast and it is done. Like you went from not knowing anything to knowing, like being the most reliable podcast producer ever. So I know one day she's going to be like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm going to keep you as long as I can have you. But I would just love to know your perspective on what you learned from this content and how you would speak to this community, because I feel like you've been such a part of this community, but people may not have known you were the one behind the scenes. So just any thoughts, or as you've listened to this over, probably almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like, where do I even begin? I feel like working on this podcast has been such a crucial part of my growth, and just has moved me so much further than I would have gotten by myself. It has empowered me to be able to put words to what is happening or has happened that I didn't originally have the words for it, because in the past it's like things are just happening and I don't know why there's no like language for it. And then now I can look back and just see things so clearly. Just being able to look back at my old relationship and see, like, I'm convinced I was a gumball girl. Like when I look back at my behavior, I'm like, oh my God, I was so manipulative and mean, and like just expecting him to go along with whatever I wanted. And I can just look back now and be like, wow, okay, it's so clear having this content, and it's been amazing to see you grow through the process and like really refine the idea and be able to explain it clearer and clearer every single time. And so I'm just so excited for like more people all over to know about it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely been a long journey, but yeah, sometimes it just takes a while to this. I mean, I had these yellow sticky notes on my walls 10 years ago, but it was just at this infancy stage. And I didn't really know, is this a thing? Is this going to be a thing? Or is this just me being weird in my office because I got to buy office supplies? I need giant yellows. Yes, I need markers. I need these things because but really like it was, it was just, it all took the proper amount of timing and it evolved exactly how it needed to. So, well, this is awesome. I'm so glad we had a chance to chat because I just wanted everyone to hear your journey and how you don't really know what's going to happen next. Like, are you going to be in Vietnam or Mexico? The fact that you don't know and you're like up for it is super cool. And I want people to kind of somewhat live vicariously through you, but also be inspired to maybe they're not going to move to a different country, but maybe it's even just going and eating Vietnamese food. Cause I know like for me, food is scary to try new things. I am adventurous in all things, but not food. So, but yeah, I just love that I think maybe you already see it now, but just think of what you're doing. You're connecting with people all over the world. You're on the other side of the world and you're not only experiencing the culture, but you're bringing other creators together. You're talking about relationships. You're talking about health. You're talking about business and technology. I mean, there's just so many things. So you are a little powerhouse girl. And I'm so proud of you. Like, I feel like a little bit familiar with you, but yeah, but I can't wait to see what happens. So, keep us posted and I will keep everyone posted in our community of when you decide to do another health workshop. Cause I'd like to bring that to the girls and talk about our periods more because it's the one thing we all have in common, right? Like it's so important. So yeah, definitely keep us posted. So where can people find Dana for any updates or posts that you're making? Let everyone know where we can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at dana.drahos, Drahos. That is where I post all of my Instagram story rants about health. I go very hard. That's it for now.
That's it for now. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it is almost 11 p.m. in Vietnam, so thanks for doing a late night podcast, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much, Melissa. So fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.